From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. In today's show, Mark tunes in to Senator Chuck Grassley's weekly ag conference call. I visit with National Pork Producers Council Director of Animal Health, Dr. Anna Forseth, and Dustin continues his monthly chat with Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig. Now let's welcome in our hosts, Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman.
Well, welcome into another edition of Iowa Ag Matters. You're on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Dustin Huffman here with you in Des Moines. Mark Magnuson joining me as well. And Mark, we start off today. Definitely got some interesting news I shouldn't say interesting, but good news that the ethanol industry and corn producers have been looking for. And that is the president has included year-round E15 in his budget ask here from Congress, his supplementary budget ask. And so there's another path forward, being we knew it was going to face some headwinds in the Senate. Maybe now if you attach it to a bill that's got some pull, which had been the original, goal to begin with, was finding something that's going to have to be handled, and you got a better chance of getting it through. So hopefully now, I know there's a lot of hopeful members of the Corn Congress, the Biofuels Caucus that are, of course, waiting to find out if this is actually going to work.
And the interesting thing that I think about this situation is that, yes, the oil states essentially built a blockade of getting this into previous legislation. We know that based on the things we've heard from various politicians talking about how it was so close. And then at the last minute, it was basically stopped by those oil state politicians. But at the same time, even if this were to fall through, it's very clear that this is an issue that the Midwest politicians are not going to let go away. I mean, it is going to be front and center until basically it seems like we can get this into some type of legislation, because this is something that would be so beneficial for farmers. It would be so beneficial for the states that produce these commodities, that it is just something that is always going to be pushed for, even if it were, somehow to fall apart again in this instance, and based on the vehicle they're trying to make it viable into legislation right now.
Yeah, exactly it. And of course, as we heard during the biofuels summit we had, the Renewable Fuel Summit earlier this year in Iowa. Of course, the message was also that if we can't get a national fix, they're fine going state to state, kind of like they did in the Midwest, and using those provisions in the EPA and the Clean Air Act to allow every state that wants to do it the ability to do it, and you have that best chance of getting that done. So, if it's got to be state to state, then it's got to be state to state, and so we'll see how this goes. I mean, the ethanol industry is not afraid to keep the fight going and keep finding whatever avenue forward they can. Let's go ahead and get into the markets. Eric Ralph of Comstock talking now with Mark Magnuson.
Joined today by Eric Ralph of Comstock for the opening market discussion. Eric, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Well, we're seeing a little bit of life this morning. Soybeans leading the way, no question about it, but we hit some major technical targets in the corn market, both July and December in overnight trade, seeing some rebound from the overnight lows. So that's definitely a good sign. There is a troubling aura about the market right now. Traders coming up on basis contracts coming due and having to roll those basis contracts or go ahead and deliver on the grain, whatever their choice is. And that always puts pressure on the market. And this just happens to coincide, as usual, with option expiration that happens on Friday, as well as first notice day that comes around on Tuesday for July grains. And on Tuesday, we have major reports coming out in the form of planted acreage and quarterly stocks. So all of this factoring into traders' decision-making in the market as we move towards the end of this week. And there's just a lot of balls in the air right now. And essentially, you have a lot of fear. Is this thing going to continue to go lower? Corn has made new lows for the moves. We did fill a continuation chart gap in the July contract. So without getting too technical, all I can say is we have achieved some significant support. Now the question is, can we hold the line as we go through the next few days with option expiration reports and first notice day forthcoming? That's going to be the big deal. Soybeans trading higher on a little corrective bounce here this morning. Nothing big news-wise going on. We're not seeing any super strength in crude oil or soybean oil or anything that's been kind of carrying the load of late. Just some corrective trade, and I think that definitely is worthwhile right now as we look at the expansion of the domestic crush capacity, new plants announced here recently, some plant mergers announced recently. The domestic crush is what's driving this market, and I think that's what's kept the funds in the soybean market throughout all of this on the long side of the market. In the case of the wheat, still tough to get anything going. Chicago a little bit higher. KC's about flat. Really no drivers from the wheat and can't seem to spark any life regardless of what the conditions are and what we've been hearing about out in the fields.
So with the things that you've mentioned, including first notice day just around the corner, and then also the acreage reports, do you expect a little bit of just a holding pattern then until those time frames pass because of everything that we're about to learn and everything that's, I guess, coming up on the schedule?
I would kind of expect a holding pattern per se. Probably going to see some choppy trade. We'll likely see a lot of movement, but won't necessarily go anywhere. And I think that's pretty normal when you have some major data points coming out all at the same time. And this is one of the major reports of the year, no question about it. So all eyes will be focused. And then after the report, we could see a directional move, whether that's positive or negative, depending on which crop we're talking about. But yes, essentially, I think we could move a lot to go nowhere between now and then.
And with those reports on the 30th, when you first get the reports, Eric, what's the first thing you're going to be most interested to dive into and figure out?
I kind of go through a checklist on this particular report. I look at acres first. I think everybody kind of does, just because it's one of those data points that we only get once a year. And so I go there first, then I go straight to stocks. When we look at carryover numbers, that's going to be a big deal. Then you start to kind of knife through it and figure out how the numbers change. So if you get a reduction in stocks or an increase in stocks, where were those adjustments made? Export demand has been stellar. For corn particularly, I expect that that'll be reflected. We are at a all-time high for our export program. Mexico taking a lot of that supply from us, which makes sense since they're having to feed cattle that they've never fed before. Their feed and residual demand in Mexico has to be through the roof compared to normal. And so those details then we start to sort through as we get the big numbers out of the way and look at the market reaction at the 11 o'clock time frame.
This year at the Iowa State Fair, Fair Spirit meets 250 years of American history in a celebration across the fair. See the America 250 Iowa display and a permanent sculpture created just for the fair. Walk the Iowa Veterans Memorial Walkway honoring service and sacrifice. Experience 250 years of the American flag, along with red, white, and blue contests and fair favorites. Then look to the sky for drone shows glowing in red, white, and blue, lighting up the fair like never before. From history to celebration, it all comes together at the Iowa State Fair. Learn more at iowastatefair.org.
August 13th through the 23rd.
Well, back on Iowa Ag Matters, and of course, the Senate version of the Farm Bill came out. Senate Committee Chairman Bozeman from Arkansas releasing their version, and Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa had a few moments to talk with ag journalists about what's in that bill.
Well, finally, after 3 years, we're going to have a Farm Bill out for discussion. I know the House passed one, and I think it'd be better for us to take up the House bill. But I'm not going to argue with Chairman Boozman as chairman of our committee for the hard work he has put into putting together this discussion draft of a 5-year farm bill that's coming out today. As you know, Republicans delivered big wins for the ag economy under the Working Families Tax Cut Act, including raising reference prices that will come into effect this fall, and you know that's for Iowa, that'd be $4.10 on corn and $10 on soybeans. I want to thank Chairman Boozman for his efforts to craft a farm bill that can pass bipartisan muster. I'm also glad to see many of my priorities are included in that draft text. My Fertilizer Act to help family farmers face steep input costs. Also, my Farmland Security Act is largely included, which would increase transparency and oversight of foreign ownership in American ag industry. And remember, I got the first laws on information on farm ownership by foreigners way back in 1979 when I was on the House Agriculture Committee working with Senator Wallop of Wyoming to get that bill passed. The Senate Farm Bill also support for MAP and promotion of foreign trade programs. Those two are highly valued by American farmers. However, I'm disappointed that this draft excludes language on Proposition 12 and also leaves out a permanent year-round sale of E15. At my meetings in Eagle Grove last week, Iowans were really fired up about the importance of getting E15 over the finish line. That's why I'm continuing to explore every possible avenue to get E15 passed into law.
ACM and CMA award winner, Hardy.
That's my favorite country song.
Live in concert.
I woke up on the wrong side of the truck bed this morning.
August 13th, 8 p.m., Iowa State Fair Grandstand.
You got it good, old boy.
With special guest McCoy Moore. Hardy Live. Reserve tickets on sale now through iowastatefair.org. Hardy 2026.
Well, yesterday, Mark, you were up in Story City with the folks at Winfield United. Want to tell us about what was going on up there?
Yeah, Dustin, Thierry and I were at the Winfield United Field Day yesterday that was really focusing on drone technology, drone spraying technology in agriculture, and a few short takeaways that I can tell you about. One is that drone technology is evolving very fast in that space, doing things that we were not even capable of just a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, because of that advancement in technology. The other thing is how important it is to calibrate your drone to do the things that you want it to do. That is the utmost importance to get it dialed in the way you want before you start spraying, because there are so many things that can go awry if you don't have things dialed in. So that was a very interesting day yesterday, and we'll have more Iowa Ag Matters in a moment.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland, the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
Time to run down those basis numbers for you here on Iowa Ag Matters on this Wednesday. I'm Dustin Huffman. Only one elevator making any changes here since yesterday. Let's run them down. ADM Burlington 13 cents under on corn, $3.98. Soybeans 28 cents under, $10.90. Cargill and Eddyville a nickel under on corn, cash bid $4.06. New Co-op Algona 28 cents under on corn, $3.83. Soybeans 33 cents under, cash price $10.85. Ag State Sheldon 13 cents under on corn, $3.98. Soybeans 35 cents under at $10.83. Ag State Elta 28 cents under on corn, cash bid $3.83. Soybeans 30 cents under at $10.88. Cargill and Cedar Rapids 2 cents under on corn, $4.09. Soybeans even at $11.18 for the cash bid. 5-Star Co-op Nashua 24 cents under on corn, $3.87. Soybeans 30 cents under at $10.88. Lincoln Way Energy Nevada 15 cents under on corn, $3.96 for the cash price. ADM Des Moines, they're a nickel under on soybeans, the cash price $11.13. New Co-op Red Oak 16 cents under on corn, $3.95. Soybeans 33 cents under, $10.85. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain 40 cents under on corn, the cash price $3.71. Soybeans 60 cents under at $10.58. New Co-op Sheraton 20 cents under on corn, $3.91. Soybeans 33 cents under, cash price $10.85. Walk-On Feed Ranch 40 cents under on corn, $3.71. Soybeans 57 cents under, $10.61. New Co-op Glidden 26 cents under on corn, cash bid $3.85. Soybeans 33 cents under, $10.85. Innovative Ag Services Farley 38 cents under on corn, $3.73. Soybeans 50 cents under, they're at $10.68 for the cash price. And finally at Cargill Muscatine, they're 15 cents under on corn, $3.96. Soybeans are 25 cents under at $10.93. Cash, corn, and soybean bids are subject to change without notice. Always check with your local elevators when making sales to obtain the most recent price. That's been a check of your basis bids here on Iowa Ag Matters. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this message.
Burwell Livestock Market, Burwell, Nebraska, Friday, June 26th will be a special cattle auction. We start at 11:30 on a regular auction, selling bred cows, pairs, fall calves, and feeders. That's at the Burwell Livestock Market in Burwell, Nebraska, Friday, June 26th, special cattle auction, 11:30 on bred cows, pairs, fall calves, and feeders. You can look at our complete listings at burrowlivestock.com. You can view and bid online at DV Auction or Cattle USA, or give us a call here at the auction market, 308-346-4257.
You're listening to the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network here on Iowa Ag Matters. We have a conversation with Anna Forseth. Dr. Anna Forseth is with NPPC, the National Pork Producers Council, and we get an update on swine herd health and everything that we need to be focusing on here in 2026.
Riley Smith, Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, here at the World Pork Expo at the Iowa State Fairgrounds in Des Moines, visiting with Maria Ziba. She's the Vice President of Government Affairs with the National Pork Producers Council. And of course, we're looking at a lot of things within the pork industry right now. What are some of the top global priorities for the national pork producers?
Yeah, number one is USMCA review and keeping what we have. We have a great agreement for our U.S. producers where we have zero duties, zero quotas, and alignment on our sanitary issues. So we want to keep that in place. We want to see very minimal changes to the agricultural chapter. I was just in Mexico where we were meeting with our negotiators and expressing the importance of this agreement to our industry. So that is going to be our number one priority here as we look towards the continuing year.
So when we look at some of the benefits that the pork industry is getting from the USMCA, you mentioned those zero duties. What are the top benefits that are in that current agreement?
Yeah, so Mexico is actually our number one export market. In 2025, we exported over $2.8 billion to that Mexican market and over 750 million to the Canadian market. Total, we exported almost a third total of our exports to both of those markets. So it's very important to us. Beyond that, we have a lot of alignment on sanitary issues and technical issues like our foreign animal diseases. So we want to be able to continue on with those. And the baseline is we have the rules to trade. We have been able to make those work for us in the industry for the last 30 years, and we want that continuity.
So I know a lot of the success that happens with Mexico is with like the pork variety meats. They consume a lot of the cuts that we don't here in the United States. So is there more opportunity to expand within Mexico on that side of things, just for those government relations? Or are there other nations, maybe Europe, Africa, just overseas, that might have more opportunity there?
The Mexican market has been a tremendous success for our industry. Not only do we export a lot of the variety meats, but we also hams and shoulders. About 60% of the hams and shoulders that are exported to Canada and Mexico, to specifically Mexico. And that's very important to us. It's also the method in which we are exporting those products. We are able to send them down in combos. So that means just one big bin as opposed to individually packaging those products. And that saves a lot of time and money for our exporters. But beyond that, it's certainly a market that we see has been growing. The pie has been growing per se on consumption in Mexico. The producers are able in Mexico, the Mexican pork producers are able to win. They had the highest live hog prices here last year. So we certainly see that this agreement has benefited all three parties.
And then you mentioned seeing all those benefits for all three parties of the agreement. Are there any concerns right now of that process going through right now? I mean, there has already been so much conversation into it, and there's still a lot more to go. What is the sense of optimism of hopefully keeping most of that the same?
Yeah, I think for us, it's pretty public that there's a lot of conversations around the seasonality provisions and what we're importing on strawberries, tomatoes, avocados, peppers. There's a list of 12 different things from Mexico. For us, what we want to ensure is that the business practices that our industry took 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when NAFTA was first implemented, that we have those same rules in effect. Because when our producer is looking at building a barn, they are pouring cement for 40 years. And we can't just unravel things. And so as USTR looks at the agreement as a whole, we really urge them to look at things and ensure that there aren't any unneeded repercussions of changing things.
So then even outside of USMCA, just kind of getting more market access overseas. I had seen recently that there's an effort to get more duty-free access to countries in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. Are there any other countries that have been kind of like a top target to go after on the legislative side of things?
Yeah, so for us, what we see the most market opportunity is Southeast Asia. As we look to diversify possibly from the Chinese market where 90% of our outfalls are going to, we look at the flavor portfolios and where are other countries that like to buy those sorts of products. Vietnam is at the top of the list, Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines. When it comes to Malaysia specifically, as well as Taiwan and Indonesia, we have text that has been agreed to under the arts, those frameworks, and it's great. I mean, what is in those agreements really sets up our industry for really great market access when they are fully implemented. So we couldn't ask for anything better when it comes to the Malaysia text and Indonesia. The things that they agreed to really were decades in the making. So it really has it aims to tear down a lot of those barriers for us.
All right, lots of great information today. For any producers who would like to stay in touch with the National Pork Producers Council, how can they do that?
Yeah, please follow us on social media, and you can always visit mppc.org and get all your information, and make sure to if you would like to become a member, an SIP member, we have our field staff that is great and can provide a lot of this information, and we do a lot of those rounds. So happy to continue on with the conversations with producers and make sure that they have everything they need.
Looks like another perfect day to get out there and enjoy the summer.
You hear that? Live music, laughing kids, the roar of the rides, and someone yelling, "Corn dogs!" That's Fair Spirit at the Iowa State Fair, August 13th through 23rd in Des Moines. 11 days of blue ribbon traditions, big summer nights, incredible food, and the kind of memories you talk about all year long. This is your Iowa State Fair. Plan your visit now at iowastatefair.org.
August 13th through the 23rd.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson. Joined today by Brandon Doherty of Total Farm Marketing for the Midday Market discussion. Brandon, what's happening with the trade on the grain side of the markets?
We're higher at the moment. Corn up about 3 to 4, beans leading the way up about 14 to 16, wheat's up a penny or so. I think beans are probably pulling corn and wheat along for the ride. Not a whole lot of fresh news in either of those other contracts. Now, bean oil is up today, meal's up today, so that's maybe a little bit supportive. Crude oil is also up about $1 to $1.15 a barrel, so that might be lending a little bit of support here as well. Now, as a reminder, we do have on Tuesday our quarterly stocks and acreage reports, and so that could be the next big market mover. Aside from that, though, there is some news that the Trump administration asked Congress to approve another $11 billion in aid to farmers due to the high costs associated with fuel and fertilizer since the conflict in Iran began. So that's maybe something to keep an eye on. Aside from that, the administration also has urged the Senate to pass year-round sales of E15. So maybe that's supporting the corn market a little bit today as well.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade?
Sure. Right now I have live cattle mostly lower, feeders mixed, and hogs are lower across the board. We did see box beef prices were down on Wednesday, choice down 137, select down 292. So that is maybe putting a little bit of pressure on the market. We're also seeing some increase in cases of the screwworm making news headlines. So, at this point, it doesn't seem like the market has paid a lot of attention to that, seems to have shrugged that news off to a large degree. However, if this screwworm cases continue to expand, that could, in theory, restrict cattle movement in the country, which would potentially be supportive, but may have some shorter-term negative implications due to consumer sentiment concerns.
What's the best way for our listeners to get in touch for more marketing information?
The best way is to call us at 800-334-9779.
Looks like another perfect day to get out there and enjoy the summer.
You hear that? Live music, laughing kids, the roar of the rides, and someone yelling, "Corn dogs!" That's Fair Spirit at the Iowa State Fair, August 13th through 23rd in Des Moines. 11 days of blue ribbon traditions, big summer nights, incredible food, and the kind of memories you talk about all year long. This is your Iowa State Fair. Plan your visit now at iowastatefair.org.
August 13th through the 23rd.
July corn up 3.5 at 410.5. July soybeans up 13 3/4 at 1122.5. July soybean meal up 220 at 305.80. July soybean oil up 68 cents at 70.14. Chicago wheat up 3/4 cent at 586.5. Minneapolis wheat is up a penny at 585. Kansas City hard red wheat down 1 1/4 at 616. On the Merc, August live cattle down 5 cents at 246.48. August feeder cattle up 20 cents at 373.13. July lean hogs down 85 cents at 93 even. That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson.
Back on Iowa Ag Matters, and we're going to go back into the marketplace and see what's happening with the livestock, cattle and hogs. Hogs have the quarterly hogs and pigs report coming out here today. We're going to wait and see how that plays out. Eric Ralph of Comstock Investments talking again with Mark Magnuson.
What's happening on the other side of the markets with the livestock trade?
Well, cattle have been a bright spot for the past week. This week especially, we've been watching the feeder cattle cash. It has really jumped. We've had some special sales taking place that has pushed the index levels to extremely high levels, and we're seeing some market response in the futures as well. August feeder cattle really not keeping pace with what the cash market is doing, so maybe we're expecting some waning cash as we go through the next couple of days, because these special sales will be over. However, August still very firm at 374 with about a 380 cash level. Live cattle have not seen a lot of volume in the cash trade. We did see a decent number posted last week, but we're starting to inch back up from the downward trajectory that we had been on and now have 256 live cattle cash. This is a market that still has the fundamental storyline and continues to outperform time-wise, definitely holding on longer than what we had thought it would. In the case of the hogs, it's been a struggle. The cash market can't get anything going. Futures responding in earnest. We have July hogs at 93.15. We've had the opportunity to hedge off 110 July in recent months, and so far behind that now that it just seems like we'll never get that opportunity. We've not seen the seasonal rally that we normally would in hogs. As you come into grilling season, normally you see a spike up, especially in those summer months. We've been unable to do that, but we have industry participants still telling us that there's going to be a supply hole coming. Likely won't be until about the August timeframe. Whether or not that comes to fruit, that'll be the deal.
Eric, what's the best way for our listeners to get in touch for more marketing information?
You can find us on all the social media outlets. Go to the Comstock channel on YouTube. You can go to our website at comstock.com, or just give us a call at 712-227-1110.
As Eric mentioned, a lot of great resources and marketing information from the team at Comstock. Head to comstock.com. Eric Ralph, my guest here today, thanks so much for the time. Always appreciate it, and have a great day.
You too, Mark. Thanks.
Rod Stewart. When I see you tonight. A special evening with the icon. A night of hit after hit after hit with special guest Richard Marks. Friday, August 14th, Iowa State Fair Grandstand. Reserve tickets on sale now through iowastatefair.org. Don't miss an electrifying event. Friday, August 14th. Rod Stewart live.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Here is the latest from Dustin Huffman's monthly conversation with Iowa Secretary of Agriculture Mike Naig about the legislative priorities for Iowa agriculture. Here's Dustin with more.
And now we're sitting here looking at the Senate, still waiting for something to happen there. Hopefully here any moment we could be hearing from the Senate, at least on a farm bill, but E15 is still a big question mark there.
It is. And look, I'm gonna try to be, you know me, I'm gonna try to be optimistic and yet realistic at the same time. I think it's good news that you are seeing, and we expect movement this week, maybe as you say today or now, as we're recording this, see some language from the Senate. Big questions are what's in that and what's not. Is the fix for Proposition 12 in there? We don't expect it to be. What about year-round access to E15? Again, we all would like to see, those of us in Iowa certainly, but I think this is so much beyond Iowa here. Every consumer in the United States would benefit from having more homegrown renewable fuel access to that. And so Iowans saved $60 million last year alone by pumping E15 versus E10. That's real money. And especially in this economy where we're talking about affordability, the ability to save 10, 15, 20 cents a gallon on gas because it's got more ethanol in it is something that every American would benefit from. So from that standpoint alone, we think this is worthy of inclusion, but it also, of course, helps a struggling farm economy as well. So those are the types of things. I'm going to say optimistic because good that we have language, good that we have a process that's getting underway in the Senate, and that creates opportunity to move language.
And as we talk about the situation, you know, obviously the farm bill, as we've talked many times before, maybe 13 to 15% of that whole bill has something to do with agriculture. So to not have protections from Prop 12 in a situation where this could go well beyond agriculture and hogs, but also the E15 situation. I mean, both these seem to be kind of head scratchers, are both pretty simple wins for the agriculture industry. Why are they having so much trouble?
You know, good question. I mean, it's politics is an interesting thing, of course, and regional differences, and not just partisan politics. And of course, it's an election year as well. Hard to understand. This point on E15, it's not a mandate. It's making it available. And what we find in Iowa is we don't just talk about this stuff. We actually do it. And what we know is when it's available, Iowans choose it. And I mean, E15 sales are up 60% last year, and it'll be up more this year because we have more fueling stations providing it. I mean, it's so obvious to me. It's a no-brainer. Prop 12, look, and whether you care about pork and egg production, as we do, being number one in the country for both, what you should care about is that this has the potential, if this runs unfettered, think of the patchwork of regulations on think of all aspects of our lives and commerce that could have a situation where one state has different rules than another. These are the basic concepts of interstate commerce, of the Dormant Commerce Clause. Our founding fathers talked about these exact types of things. And so this isn't just about pork production or egg production. This is actually a bigger issue around commerce in this country. And eventually that's going to have to come to a head. We think it's right to do it now.
And also USMCA is something that we've been watching on the federal level as well. The president kind of surprising people and saying he may not want to reauthorize USMCA. Now, a little bit of a head scratcher there too, because of the fact that it was kind of, you know, in Trump 1.0, that was one of his wins that he had. Of course, has it been perfect? No, but agriculture has been getting some benefits from it.
Well, and that's exactly right. Look, I think the president is right to insist that Canada and Mexico come to the table in a real way to negotiate and get this deal done. And if they're not taking it seriously, then that's problematic. This is an important agreement. Look, USMCA, Canada and Mexico are Iowa's number one and number two trading partners. And as you say, it's not perfect, but ag has definitely benefited. And the types of ag products that we move to Mexico and Canada in particular are very compatible. Again, they're not things that we're using in the US or the things that are easily moved by rail or by truck. And so, look, these are important markets for us. But there are irritants that need to be dealt with, and certainly dairy, specialty crop, automotive. I mean, we get that there are things that are beyond the scope of what Iowa is focused on that impact this. The point is about the importance of having this framework, a rules-based framework to trade, is that when there are disruptions or disagreements, you have a way to resolve them. The Mexico trying to ban the importation of GMO corn was a good example of that. That's not allowed under this USMCA, and there needs to be a resolution to that. And you can force Mexico to the table and resolve that in a science-based way because you've negotiated the framework. So look, let's get this thing negotiated and signed and continue with the benefits of USMCA.
Rod Stewart.
When I see you tonight,
A special evening with the icon.
on a downtown train,
A night of hit after hit after hit with special guest Richard Marks. Friday, August 14th, Iowa State Fair Grandstand. Reserve tickets on sale now through iowastatefair.org. Don't miss an electrifying event. Friday, August 14th. Rod Stewart, live.
That brings us to the end of today's episode of Iowa Ag Matters. Thanks for listening. Join us again tomorrow for more here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag Matters.